in love is awesome. Being in love is also a huge pain in the ass. Nothing brings us more joy or more pain than our romantic partnerships. But all the information out there about what to do can be really confusing. So today I'm cutting through all the noise and bringing you the keys to a long, happy relationship backed by research. So stay tuned. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me. It's another week of the Relationships Made Easy podcast. It's always fun for me to be here. It's always great when you write in with your awesome questions and, wanting answers or topics you want to hear about. And one of the things I do hear a lot about is, how to keep a relationship long-term. And so I do want to say first that to me, it's not about a long-term relationship. It's about a happy relationship because lots of folks are in them long-term and they're not happy. And I don't know why everyone thinks long-term is the only thing. It really is about, happy. As I wrote in my #1 Amazon best-selling book, Be Happily Married, even if your partner won't do a thing, if you haven't gotten it yet, you might want to check it out. Good timing. But either way, and obviously that's for all relationships, not just marriages, but I really was excited to get into this. And not long ago, there's been a lot of new research on the scene, or it's really research that's been going on a long time, but we're finally having some kind of answers, like some, what the results are, some results of these long-term research studies. So, and actually there's one that I really want to talk about right now to sort of set the stage for us talking about these, it's really two keys that I'm going to talk about today that are really the things to focus on. And in 1938, there was something, it's now famous, it was called the Grant Study, also known as the Harvard Study of Adult Development. And it set out to answer one question, which is, what makes a good life? And it is one of the most comprehensive longitudinal studies ever done, over 80 years. I mean, it's crazy. I should say it's one of the longest studies done, at least on white privileged males, I say with love. But we've this research, what they found is also found in other research. So I do want to say that. This study has produced some amazing findings. But so George Valiant, who led the study for really the majority of the decades it's been in existence, he's no longer the director, but what he said was that the whole study boiled down to this. He said, the 75 years and the $20 million we've spent on the Grant Study points to a straightforward 5-word conclusion. Happiness is love, full stop. I love this quote. I say it all the time. It's so good. But that is really at the heart of what they found when they were studying all these things about what makes a good life. What is this? And they looked at health. I mean, everything. This was a very comprehensive study following these gentlemen. There were no women at Harvard in 1938. And the current director of the study is a man named a doctor named Robert Waldinger. I hope I said that right. Waldinger, I think it's Waldinger. And he's a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and is like I said, the current director of the study. And they put out a lot of findings, I think about a year ago. So he was more recently talking about another shocker that they discovered from the study. And he says that the really surprising finding is that our relationships and how happy we are in our relationships has a powerful influence on our health. Yeah. So get this. The people who were the most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 in this study were the healthiest at age 80. Think of that. So the people who were happiest in the relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. Strong relationships help to delay mental and physical decline. So taking care of your body is important, but tending to your relationships is a form of self-care too. To him, he says that's a revelation right there. So we are pretty clear, right? That having healthy, connected relationships is one of the secrets to a happy life. But of course, the question is, great, Abby, how do I get there? I'm trying, I'm listening to your podcast. What do I do? So the good news is that the grant study, again, hasn't been the only game in town. I don't want you to think that we're just looking at these, again, kind of white males over all those years. The researchers around the world, of course, have been studying what makes happy, lasting relationships. And there are a few consistent findings that you can apply to your own life. Okay? So that's what I'm going to go over today. Really, and that's why there's only really two things. I mean, there's kind of more. They talk about compassion, empathy, and I've got all that other episodes about that, but I want to really focus on these two because they're different and there's something I haven't talked about before. So drum roll. So the first thing is to be delusional. I know you're like, delusional? Yep. No, I'm not kidding. One of the biggest findings from the research is the ability, get this, to sustain what they call positive illusions, or an easier way to say that is idealizing your partner. And I know you're thinking right now, but happy isn't a happy relationship based on having shared values and communicating effectively? And obviously I'm not saying those are bad things, but what I'm saying is that there's actually no research to support that those things are the most important. Okay. And I'm just going to dabble a little bit in the research so you can believe me. And I'm going to use two of the really big studies, two more of the really big studies. So there was a meta-survey. A meta-survey means that you looked at a bunch of other studies. And there was a meta-survey. This is Marcel Zentner from a PhD, of course, from the University of Geneva. And did this meta-study of 470 other studies on compatibility. Okay. And he found that there actually weren't any common, kind of character qualities that led to lasting happy relationships. So again, despite combing through vast amount of research, all these studies, he couldn't find any combination of personality traits or whatever that added up to, some holy grail of relationships. But get this, but there was one exception, and that's this: the ability to sustain your positive illusions. And again, I'll link to all the research on the show notes page. So if you really want to go look at these studies, you're welcome to. No, I'm not making things up. My kids are always, if I give them a fact about pot or something else, they're like, you're making that up, if it's something they don't want to believe. And I'm always whipping out the research. I'm like, here's the study. Anyway, isn't it fun to live with me? Yeah. So let's talk about this a little bit. So you know that this positive illusion thing, you know how you feel in the beginning of a relationship, okay? The very beginning of the relationship. I'm not talking about the buzz you're having from all the great sex, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you first described your partner to your friends or family, and you remember, or to yourself, and you just went on and on about how fantastic they were and fabulous, and he's this and she's that. Okay, well, if you want to be happy now, and again, make it last, you got to keep talking that way. You have to keep talking that way. You got to still think that your partner is hot, or at least attractive, that they're smart and funny and thoughtful and kind and caring, or whatever you thought about them in the beginning that was enough to want to stay with them and get serious. So I want you to be love blind. That's what I'm talking about today. You've got to be love blind. You can call it self-deception. I don't care that your partner, I'm lying to myself if I say that my partner still looks as good at 50 as they did at 30, but I call it smart. I say be grateful and excited that you feel this way if you feel that way. I will really, and I'm just going to jump in with something with personal here. This particular key thing is very alive and well in my own relationship. My man is hot. I think he's hot. All these years in, I think that man is smoking. And he, thank God, looks at me like I am magic. And I can tell you that my boobs aren't where they used to be. And I talk about it a lot. I know where I left my ass in 1980, and it is not there. I don't look like I used to. My face is drooping. I'm old. I'm almost 60. I'm pushing on the other side to 60. It's like I do not look like I used to. I'm not saying that I don't try to look my best and all that. And if you're watching me on YouTube right now, hopefully you think I look fabulous. You can comment about it. I am wearing a fabulous sweater that you're missing on the podcast. But anyway, but to still look at each other like, and I see his shoulders, or I'll touch him or whatever. It's like really feeling into this person. But it's not just the physical, So again, I don't look like I used to. He doesn't look like he used to when I met him. But it's this finding the sexy within, finding the sexy within what is now, and keeping that feeling, right? And I'm not just talking about the physical. It's also still finding them really funny or really smart or really kind or generous, whatever the things were, again, that you were talking about nonstop in the beginning. Those are the things. And I know that you're asking right now, that's great, Abby. How do you keep this feeling even after all these years together, right? All this time together. And there's many answers to this question, but I'll tell you that the low-hanging fruit is to do your best not to be overly familiar with your spouse. I talk about this quite a bit with your partner. What's my favorite thing I talk about? Close the bathroom door. Friggin' close that door, people. I don't pee in front of Gary. Nope. I don't ask him to look at that funny skin tag on my back or joke about how I blew up the bathroom with that huge poop I just took. I don't talk that way to this man. And by the way, I hold him to the same standard. It's not funny to fart in front of me. If you need to fart, leave the friggin' room. And I know someone's listening right now, furious and upset that I'm saying these things. Know that, we're close, we're intimate. If you're listening now, there's work probably to be done in the relationship. There's things you're trying to do. And it's very hard to not get overly familiar in relationships. You live together, you sleep together, you do everything together. You're around each other all the time. They know about your secret snacking habits, and they know about, what your bathroom habits. It's like you've got to find that space to create space. And I'm telling you, one of the easiest things to do is to just start separating out the bathroom issue. Or even, when I get undressed, I've shared this before in the podcast, I don't just get undressed and jump into bed, in all my fabulous nakedness. I give a little show. I get undressed slowly. I think about it, in other words. I think about it. When I change out of my work clothes into, clothes I'm going to wear around the house, because I don't like to ruin my lovely, beautiful work sweater I have on today, I still change into something that's not. I don't change into ripped up holy sweats, I'm comfortable. I'm totally comfortable. I buy comfortable. I'm comfortable now. I'm comfortable in the clothes I wear to work. I'm comfortable in the clothes later. But I just pay a little bit of attention to it. Nothing crazy, but a little bit of attention. So, and it's not, I do want to say, it's not just the physical. It's also about showing up with enthusiasm for, what your partner's interested in, enthusiasm for their wins. It's about noticing how you're thinking about them day to day. If all you do is focus on their negatives or complain to your friends about them, that's the energy that becomes your relationship. That becomes the story of your relationship. And if you want a happy, long-term partnership, you need to change the story to a really good one. And to the one you had when you first got together. You had a great story about this person when you first got together, or you wouldn't have had the second, third, 10th date, or I hope not a wedding. So, or moved in, or whatever you did next, thinking that's my person. Somewhere along the way, of course, our illusions get shattered as we, have this person maybe on too high of a pedestal, or we were expecting different things, or whatever. You got to get back. And again, as part of this, I would say don't complain about yourself or point out how there's no room between your thighs, or I've seen guys, rub their big belly and tell their partner, hey, there's more of me to love. Ha ha ha. Don't do that. Don't do that. No one likes that. Stop that. Stop that right now. I say with love. It's like we're pointing out things, or, oh, I look so fat in this, or whatever. Stop it. Just stop. Just don't. I just don't say that stuff. Even if I'm thinking it, I'll call a girlfriend and say, oh my God, I gained some weight in the pandemic, my butt. I don't say that stuff to my man. I don't need to. It's not, why am I trying to convince him that I don't look good? Right? It doesn't make any sense. And he shouldn't convince me either. So, just think about it. Thinking and believing that your partner is better than they are. Think of that. It's better than they are. That's the best love blindness you can have. And I'm going to share with you, there's other research where they found that people who were unrealistically idealistic about their partners when they got married were more satisfied years later in the relationship than those who were less idealistic about their partners when they got married. And to me, right, when I first heard this, I thought that sounds counterintuitive, right? It sounds counterintuitive. If I'm going in with these, unrealistic thoughts about my partner, isn't that mean? I'm just going to be disappointed. Doesn't that set me up for failure? Shouldn't I have the opposite? But the research shows, nope. You should have unrealistic idealistic views of your partner. That's actually what carries. And this a woman named Sandra Murray was the lead researcher of that study I just said. And she explained it this way. She said, people are very good at changing their definitions to match how they want to see themselves or how they want to see other people. So someone could decide they're a good driver, for example, even if they've had speeding tickets, right? Even if, if they've never been in an accident. So I can decide that I'm a great driver. I've never been in an accident, but I've had like 50 speeding tickets and God knows what else, right? We can decide these things. And in the same way, people might be able to decide that they're your spouse match or your partner match, that they match your ideal, even if it's not really true. You can decide that and make that the true story you tell yourself. So I say, let yourself be a little crazy for your partner anyway, that it will pay off. And I really want you to think about this right now. Like, how can I start really thinking about these things and almost blowing them out of proportion that they do well, that I do like about them. Focus there, create this whole new story, start the new story, and stop telling the old story. It's not helping you. You're not getting anywhere. Okay. And then the other one I want to mention, key number 2. So really goes into this idea that we need to have all these things similar. And there's only one similarity that matters, again, from the research. And I'll talk about it in a minute. But since I'm talking about Gary so much, please don't tell him I talked about him on the podcast. I told you before, he's very shy. He would hate this so much. But he doesn't listen. So we get to just talk. I will tell you, Gary and we don't like the same things. Pretty much across the board. I love food. I'm a food whore, if you want to put it that way. I love it. I love food. I talk about it constantly. I'm the daughter of a chef. I love to cook and bake. I make gourmet meals. I make scrumptious desserts. I love being in the kitchen. I love entertaining people. I love talking about food. I'll talk about your food. When I'm in a restaurant, I'm that person looking at everyone else's plate. What do they have? What do they have? I'm not going to order it. I just want to know. I just like to talk about it. So, and Gary, my man would take a pill every day if he could to get all his nutrients. That he would be very happy just taking a pill. Literally, or getting some takeout from Wendy's. that would be top of his, going into a burger joint and driving out, getting a pizza. Like, that's his thing. Gary loves to challenge himself physically. I've talked about this. He works out often. He says things like, I get to go work out, which I think is crazy. He did triathlons for many years, and he switched to obstacle course races a few years ago. Talks about them, travels. I mean, he loves going to the gym. Oh my gosh. When he talks about his workouts, it's so cute. I consider walking from the couch to the refrigerator my required steps for the day. I just want to say that. I do exercise but I really don't want to. I think I look at all the research so that I can find some that says I don't have to exercise. All these years in, everyone was like, oh, you'll start loving it. It'll be great. You'll get some. Nope, not me. I don't know what to say. I want it to be me. I keep telling the story of, oh yeah, exercise. I mean, I get myself so hyped up, which is the only reason I do it every day. Not every day, during the week. But it's just not, I don't go out of my way to go. I don't hike. I don't go on bike rides. And Gary loves all that stuff. And I could go on and friggin' on. He's a country mouse. I'm a city mouse. He thinks spending $100 on a pair of sneakers is way too much, even though he literally wears sneakers every single day. Wears them to work, wears them every day. I have a shelf of Louis Vuitton bags. That's what I like. I mean, we are, but we're also very much in love even after so many years together. So, what gives, right? What gives? Don't you have to have a ton of similar interests to make a relationship last? I've heard this. Don't you need to be more alike than different to find long-term happiness with someone? Well, not according to the research. The research supports my crazy relationship with my man. There was a study of 23,000 married couples, and they found that similarity of spouses only accounted, get this, for 0.5. That's less than 1%, half of 1%. 0.5% of couples' satisfaction. Less than 1% of how satisfied they were had to do with their similarities. There was another meta study. This one was analyzed the results of 313 other studies. And they again found that similar preferences had no effect on being happy in the relationship. How do you like that? Overall, being alike and liking the same things is less than 1% of the variation in overall relationship satisfaction. And people come to me all the time worried that they don't have enough in common with their partner. We need to do more together. We need to find more things we like together, or they're not enough alike. But the research shows that's not where your focus needs to be. Again, I'll link to all this. So why have we been thinking all this time that we need to find someone like us? That we need to have this? Underneath that idea is this belief that if we have so much in common, we won't have any problems. If you really think about why you want to have so much in common, it's so that we'll get along really well. If we have all these things in common, we'll like to do the same things, we'll get along really well, we'll spend all our time together, it'll be great, we won't have any problems. But every single couple has problems. Every single one. Mine does too. We have problems. Hopefully I'm not making it sound like we're perfection. We are not. We got stuff. This idea that you can avoid problems by having common interests is the problem. That is not how you do it. And maybe, there's been a lot of research on arranged marriages, and maybe that's why, did you know, I hope you know this, arranged marriages are as successful and often more successful than so-called love marriages. The research on arranged marriages consistently shows that even though these kind of relationships are harder in the beginning, after a few years, they improve and find satisfaction. And this is likely because, think about it, people who are entering an arranged marriage, they know it's going to take hard work. They don't even know this other person. So they're going in with the idea that they're going to have to put in effort over time. They're walking in the door with that. Whereas in a other kind of relationship, right? That's not true. Compare this to someone who's all caught up in that lust, what we call limerence, that woo feeling that's so common in love relationships and, when you first get together. And, if you compare those two, you can see the problem. The love marriage is acting on hormones and, I found my soulmate. And soulmates are meant to be, so I shouldn't have to work hard. Oh, we've got all these things in common. This is going to be great. They are vibing with their person. They have similar goals and values. And they're like, this is it. We're a perfect match. But then reality hits and they're maybe not prepared. And I know because I get these folks in my office all the time. They start questioning if do I really love my partner? Was it really meant to be after all? Was I deluding myself? Is this the person? So, there's one thing you need to have the same. There's one thing you need to have that's similar. But it's not an activity or where you come from. It's not the language you speak or the movies you like. It's none of those. The only similarity you need from the research is to handle your emotions in the same way, or what what the researchers, like marriage guru, John Gottman, who I always talk about because I love him, Dr. John Gottman says it's what they call your meta emotions. And Gottman studies specifically have shown that the way you and your partner deal with your emotions when you're reacting to situations and conflict is a big key to whether your relationship will be happy and last. Okay? I'm going to explain all this, so don't worry. So what do I mean by a meta emotion? So basically, your meta emotions, this is how you feel about feelings. Your emotions about your emotions. Depending on how you were raised and how much work you've done on yourself, that kind of adds up to the emotions you have around your emotions, to your meta emotions. So for example, you might think, feelings are helpful, but your partner believes they're unproductive or even frivolous to share all your feelings. So that creates the conflict. That's the problem. That's where everything, because again, you're going to have problems no matter what. So how do you come together? How do you guys, talk about things? So I want you to think about what the emotional climate was in your house growing up. Okay? Because this has a lot to do with this. So for example, in my house, and I've shared this on much earlier podcast episodes, there was no anger in my, there was no expression of anger in my house, really. I never saw my parents fight. Certainly my siblings fought with each other, but there wasn't we didn't yell at our parents or anything like that. Like there wasn't in general a lot of feelings out there. Instead, so when my parents were upset with one another, there would be what I now know to be passive aggressive statements. I didn't realize that's what it was at the time. So they seemed like everybody was smiling and happy, but they were making these, they're kind of sniping or digging, maybe under the pretense of a joke or teasing or even under a backhanded compliment kind of thing. Or, oh yeah, that's fine. I'll just do it like I do everything else around here, kind of thing. And, walking out of the room. But if you're a kid watching that, you just see everybody smiling and walking out of the room and no one's blowing up. So, that's what I learned, that anger isn't an emotion you're supposed to express. And I didn't even know what anger was for many years. So I didn't really get when I was angry. So in his research, Gottman identified these 3 types of kind of what he calls, I think, emotional families you might have grown up in. So I want you to listen and see what you might relate to. There's 3 kinds. One is the emotional dismissing. That's the first one, emotional dismissing. So this is the kind of family where your emotions were dismissed or minimized. People weren't comfortable talking about emotions and maybe would try to quickly move on. That was definitely in my house what happened. You might have heard, oh, don't be upset. You'll be fine. The famous boys don't cry. And as an adult, of course, you're going to have then a hard time even identifying your emotions or showing your true feelings or connecting with others around their emotions. So you can, I got to tell you, anyone who becomes a counselor, therapist, psychologist, me, that's the reason you get into it, because you're kind of effed up about this stuff. And so this is how you learn. And, in my drug rehab days, I've talked about before, they always make you go around and name a feeling, like in the groups. And I used to dread this because I didn't know what my feelings were. I knew happy and sad, maybe okay or fine, maybe angry occasionally or miffed. That's all I knew. So it was really hard, but you gotta practice, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So the second kind, so that was emotion dismissing. Then there's emotion disapproving. And in this kind of family, you might have even gotten punished for showing your anger or your sadness. Or there was just this unsympathetic reprimand or a criticism about expressing your feelings or asking others about their feelings, right? Expressing feelings means maybe even meant you were trying to get your way. You're trying to manipulate me, and feels like it can feel like it's getting out of control easily. So as an adult, you might get angry and harsh when someone's expressing their feelings because you're trying to contain the situation or control the situation. Or someone might be this way to you if you are someone who shares their feelings. And then the third, don't we all wish we grew up in this house, is emotional coaching. So if you were lucky enough to grow up in this type of family, you were surrounded by people who were really comfortable sharing, expressing, discussing emotions. You were asked how you felt. You were validated around your feelings. It was okay to be sad or angry. You were encouraged to express your feelings. You got asked more questions, delve deeper, let's go there. So as an adult, you're not going to be afraid of emotions in yourself, in other people. You're not going to feel threatened or attacked in a disagreement. You're going to be able to handle things in this whole other way. Emotions are your friend. You're not afraid of them. You don't. Yeah, I know. Some of us are. You emotionally healthy people are listening. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, some of us are afraid of them, or were. I've done a lot of therapy, so you can see, right? Major problems happen in relationships when there's a mismatch of these meta emotions, of how you feel about your emotions, of how you treat emotions. When there's a mismatch between you and your partner, problems happen. So let's say you come from a family that was great with emotions. God bless you. If you're still listening, I love you so much for being here. Probably trying to give me therapy. So you grew up in a family that was great with emotions. So you were encouraged to say how you felt and explore how others are feeling and all that good stuff. But your partner, they come from a family where they were taught to put on a happy face. Maybe I'm your partner. They were taught to put on a happy face and just keep moving no matter what was happening, right? There's nothing behind the curtain, that's the great Oz. Are you that old, that young that you don't know the Wizard of Oz? Okay. So something upsets you and you express, and you're a little healthy from your little healthy family. And here you are as an adult. Something upsets you and you express your anger or your sadness, but your partner gets triggered by this. They don't empathize. And instead, they jump into problem-solving mode, or they try to dismiss what happened. Wasn't that bad? Oh, it's okay. It's going to be okay. They sort of dismiss it. They, do all these things. I did these things for years and years and years. And occasionally I still fall into the trap. So you end up feeling abandoned and rejected by your partner, and like they're not there for you. But what's really happening is that your partner's trying to save you from these terrifying, scary, negative emotions that have made them uncomfortable. So they're thinking, well, you must be uncomfortable. It's the worst to feel this way. I also see this sometimes when, when people used to be in my office way back in the day, pre-COVID, somebody would cry. Let's say the wife was crying or the woman was crying, and their husband or boyfriend or fiance, whatever, would immediately go grab tissues. And I've seen this in lesbian relationships too, and I've seen it the other way with men. Just so back off if you're worried about my gender stuff here, but you get where I'm going. Someone's crying, and the other person's like, "Oh, getting some tissues, getting up and grabbing them a cup of water." They're trying to make it go away. It's sit there, hold their hand, be in the moment, let them have this time. Don't try to interrupt it. But that's a great example of someone who's dismissing or uncomfortable. And it's under the guise of I'm helping, I'm trying to make you feel better, but it's really because I'm so uncomfortable sitting here watching you cry. I don't want to do that anymore. So they distract themselves. So what do you do? What do you do? Thanks, Abby. That's great. I'm hanging up now. No, I'm not. So learning to identify and get comfortable with your feelings is really what's here. That's what's so huge. When you're comfortable with your own feelings, you're able to express them while also supporting and validating your partner. What a thought. Craziness, I know. So you've got to start to notice your feelings throughout the day. You've got to see, again, notice your feelings and how you feel about your feelings. Remember, that's the meta. How do I feel about this? If you're angry, is it okay to yell or get loud? Is it okay to show anger at all? Notice what happens when you start to feel angry, what you do with it. Do you believe in, rocking the boat, or is it all about letting things go? Don't rock the boat, let it go. Even think of something good. When something wonderful happens, do you share it and get excited with your partner? Or were you taught to tamp down the happiness and wait, because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, you're waiting for the bad thing to happen. Don't get too happy, whatever you do. Ooh, happy that, whatever it's happy, bad things happen. notice how you feel. So you'll end up feeling anxious when you're happy. This is what happens a lot in addiction. People will say to me, God, I relapsed, but I was happy. I'm like, yeah, it's probably why you relapsed. You were uncomfortable being happy. And again, that relates to, and you drink to, or you do drugs or whatever to deal with that discomfort. So be aware, and you can usually tell if you're overeating or drinking or drugging or doing certain things when you're happy, that self-sabotage. It's often, again, because you need to look at this meta emotion, how you feel about the feeling, how you feel about happiness. If you're sad, should you suppress the feeling? Or you're allowed to have yourself a good cry? If you feel hopeless and want to quit something, what do you do with that? How do you feel about that? Do you share the feeling of sadness, or do you substitute it with anger and blame? Does that happen? How do you feel when someone else is expressing anger or sadness? Again, notice the feeling about the feeling. Identifying your feelings is a skill. What do I say? It's a skill. I used to suck at it so much. I'm not saying I'm a master, but I'm pretty good now. So it's going to take some practice, but like any other skill, repetition is going to make you great. It's going to make you amazing, right? I also want you to, again, part of this is starting to notice how you respond when others are expressing their emotions. And again, to do all of this, you're going to have to get in on your mindfulness practice throughout the day, not just a little meditation first thing in the morning, or maybe a little thing at night. During the day, you got to check in with yourself. During the day, you have to notice, I'm in a meeting with my boss and they say something and I'm getting uncomfortable. You have to notice that you do that. So notice if you notice your discomfort, do you dismiss something, is that what you get into? Do you notice that you do that and try to move on? Do you try to immediately problem solve? Do you ask questions? Do you explore? Do you encourage other people to share more? What do you do when you're uncomfortable? These are all the things I want you looking at this week. Okay. I feel like I just yelled at you for it. Okay. I got into it. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to close up by just saying this. There was this guy. So Daniel Wild famously said, I love this quote. He says, choosing a partner is choosing a set of problems. And that is really kind of at the bottom, right? There's no perfect person. There's no perfect soulmate. There's always a set of problems. It's just what you're going to do with that. Are you going to be delusional and not focus on them, number one? And number two, are you going to see that you can use your meta emotions, right? That how you feel about your feelings to match up with your partner or to be in a healthier place. So, because in the end, you're not looking again for someone who's so similar to you, so you think you won't have conflict, because you inevitably will. Instead, it's about being with someone who handles emotions in the same way you do. Put your energy there. Keep your energy there. And again, you got to be mindful to do that. So you can download my mindfulness starter kit for free. Can't say enough. Practice mindfulness any way you can. You can sign up for my newsletter. It comes out once a week. It's really the Relationships Made Easy weekly check-in where I give you a little inspiration to hold you through the week. It's a great way. Wednesday mornings it comes out. It's once a week. I don't bombard you with anything. I try to keep it relatively short. And I tell a little story or I tell a little thing to try to help you get a focus for the week, to get into a certain mind frame for the week. So try that, just start doing things that are going to help you stay in your moments so you can make your relationships better. And that's it for this week. So, as always, if you like the podcast, please leave, you can rate it now on Spotify. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can like and subscribe, which would be really awesome. Leave a comment if you want, whatever. But it's great if you can help me out the other way.